Good evening, ACCB 129. I guess it might not be evening when you're watching this, but it's evening while I'm recording this. I've seen quite a few questions come across my desk regarding, okay, so what am I doing in the workbook? And those are all excellent questions. So today I will go out and I will put an announcement right out here, right above this one that says Chapter 1, and I want 4 specific workbook problems done. I don't need you to do all of them. I just need you to do in this particular chapter 4. We're getting kind of a late start this week because we've had people adding and dropping the class and makes it a little hectic, so I'm only going to require 4. And I will give you a brief little video tutorial on how to do part of them, and then for a couple other problems there is already existing videos. And I'd like to remind you that you have additional resources for this course in the multimedia library. They've already got pre-recorded lectures, and so I'm not going to spend my time duplicating what they already have. So right here in the multimedia library, you will change this to Chapter 1, go to Select All, and right down here in these self-review animations. So this stands for Learning Objective 1-3, which corresponds to the learning objective listed in your textbook. If you turn to page 11, again, that's page 11, on the right-hand side margin, there is a little blue dot with an LO3. That's Learning Objective 3. This corresponds with that, and this corresponds with Learning Objective 4. Again, Learning Objective 3 and Learning Objective 4. So I'm going to do a very short video tutorial on Learning Objective 2, and then you will be able to view these videos for Learning Objective 3 and 4. I also wanted to talk about a little bit about how the textbook is organized. So if you'll flip in your book to page 30, down towards the bottom in blue letters it says concept checks. These are really short little problems, and occasionally I'll have you do some of those, but for this chapter I'm not going to do that. So then turn to page 32, and right towards the top of the page it says exercises in blue letters, and right below there it says set A, and then if you'll glance your eyes over to page 33, again page 33, it says set B. So what that is there's exercises, set A and set B. They're identical except they've gone through and changed the numbers. Identical. So we'll work through some problems in your workbook for set A. Most of your set B are contained out in your homework that you're going to turn in on the My Accounting Lab website, so we probably won't go over those in class. And then if you glance a little bit further down, on page 33, you have problems. And again, you have problem set A and problem set B. And again, we'll mostly be working from problem set A. So you may have problems from concept checks, you may have them from exercises, or you may have them from problems. So be sure that you are looking at those very, very carefully. And now your workbook is set up so that there's concept checks. There's a place to enter your concept checks. And then there's a place in your book to enter either exercises from A set or exercises from B set. So that's why we try to stick with one set or the other. And my preference is I like to stick with exercise A. And again, the same thing for your problems. So just be sure, are you looking at an exercise or are you looking at a problem? And before we get started on any of the problems, I'd also like you to remind you you have access to the Chapter 1 PowerPoint out here in the Multimedia Library. And a couple other extras, the accounting cycle tutorial. This may not be as useful until we get a little further. So I want to jump right in, and I want to, there it is, sorry about that. I want to go over with you exercise 1A1, and right here, I'm going to highlight it, 1A1, and that is located on page 32, part of set A. And you can tell it's set A because it has this A right here. So everything in accounting revolves around this accounting equation. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. So we're going to take a few minutes and talk about, okay, what is an asset? An asset is something that has value to a business. Has value to a business. So companies can have lots and lots and lots of assets. We hope they do. And then liabilities, a debt or an obligation to pay, an obligation to pay. And then we have owner's equity, and this is where we track all of our transactions with the owner. And every transaction that we do in accounting comes back to this basic equation. And this equation has to always be in balance. This side always has to equal this side. So for example, this company has $27,000 in assets and $18,000 in owner's equity. It is not in balance, and we need to make it in balance. So here we know how much there's in assets, we know how much there's in equity. So what has to go right here in order for this equation to balance? And that would be $9,000. And I got that. I took 27,000 minus 18, and that gave us 9. Okay, so now let's look at this one. This one, we don't know how many assets they have, but we do have the liabilities and the owner's equity. So in order to do that, this one's going to be pretty straightforward. We're just going to take these two and we're going to add them together. And now it equals $75,000 on this side, and if I add those two numbers together, it equals $75,000 on that side. And then here we have assets. We know our liabilities. We do not know our owner's equity, so we would take this number minus this number, and that's going to give us this number. And I can't stress to you enough, and I will say this over and over and over and over, assets must equal liabilities plus owner's equity. We cannot get out of that. That is how we work our magic, and this is why accounting works. So assets, we can have more than one. It is something that has value, and I'm going to type that. Has value. Liabilities is debt. We owe money to someone. And this is transactions with owners. Transactions with owners. And now I want to move on to problem 1A1, and it's located on page 33. Problem 1A1 on page 33 in your textbook, and it's located on page SG Study Guide 12, page 12 in your workbook. So here, remember I said that we can have lots of assets. So in this particular example, we have cash and we have store equipment. Those are both assets. They have value to us. An account payable. A payable is mean we are going to agree to pay someone in the future. We are going to pay them, not them pay us. We are going to pay them. And then we have a capital account, which is a type of an owner's equity account. So let's go ahead and go through these. And remember, both sides of our equation have to stay in balance. So these are types of assets, and this is a type of a liability, and this is a type of equity, but this equation must still stay in balance. So it says invested $17,000 in cash. So we know it affects cash. And remember I said any transactions with the owner are going to go under owner's equity. In this example, we're going to use their capital account. So look, both sides of the equation are still in balance. It did not affect store equipment or accounts payable in any way. So the new balance is $17,000 in cash, in our cash account. Store equipment still has 0, accounts payable still has 0, and there's still 17. So we still are in balance on both sides of our equal sign. This is the balance in the cash account. B, bought store equipment for $3,900 in cash. So I'm going to reduce my cash, but I increased my store equipment asset account. I have nothing in liabilities, and it does not affect owner's equity in any way. So now I have $13,100 because I took $3,900 out of my cash, but now the balance in my store equipment is $3,900 after all these transactions. still 0, still 17,000. But if I add this one, cash to store equipment, we equal 17,000, so I'm still equal on both sides. Transaction C, bought additional store equipment on account. On account means that we agreed to pay them later. We agreed to pay them later. So here it did not affect cash, no money exchanged hands, and it did not affect my capital account. So my new balance here is 13,100. My new balance here is 10,000. My balance here is 6,100, and this is still 17,000. Transaction D, paid $700 in cash to partially reduce what was owed from transaction C. So I decided to pay down my creditor. So negative 700 does not affect my store, but I decided to pay this down. And this did not affect it. So now my balance is 12,400. This is still 10,000 because the next transaction didn't affect it. This one is now 5,400 and this one is still 17,000. Now let's see if our magic worked, because we are magic. And our magic worked. We balance on both ends. Now, there are two other exercises, or one other exercise and one other problem that I want you to complete, and I will list these out as an announcement, but exercise 1A4, 1A4, and problem 1A5. Problem 1A5. But those are those other video tutorials that I showed you out in your multimedia library. So you'll go, and I will again put this out in the announcements. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. After you have completed this workbook, you can take a picture, scan it in, and you, online students only, will be submitting copies of that workbook assignment into document sharing. Chapter 1 workbook submission. Save it and submit it here for a grade. For a grade. Now technically it's not due until you take chapters 1 and 2 test, but I recommend that you just stay up on the work and just go ahead and submit it now. Again, please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help, and good luck to you.